Examples of some of the strategies we've used. Social media first, since it's kind of the biggest, the hottest. It can be used in so many different ways when used right. 4 years ago, we quietly ran the Save the Screenland campaign out of the Screenland Crossroads. That Screenland was going to close down. It was always going to close down. There was no option. The owner of the building tripled their rent. But they were hoping to raise enough funds to survive for a little bit, and then enough PR hype that they would have a couple of years to rebuild. We started out on Twitter and Facebook talking about what happened, setting up a David and Goliath scenario. Big corporate New York builder comes in to gut a Crossroads classic theater to turn it into office space. We made the announcement on Twitter and Facebook, with kind of this, oh no, bad news today, here's what happened. From there, we connected with radio, stations like The Buzz. We connected with The Buzz to get the kind of younger audience that will get really hyped up about an issue over the short term, because we actually had like weeks before we were going to have to vacate. They were going to have to vacate the building. So we connected with them first, then we moved over to The Rock to get an older demographic. We built up the hype again, so social media to radio. We had actually released the press releases to print at that time, at the exact same time, because it takes weeks to get print rolled out, get a story going, developed, and all that kind of stuff. And we knew it would kind of be the end thing. So what we were really rolling out in the paper was more of a goodbye story. Pictures of Jason and Butch sitting in the theater and stuff like that. Because by that time it was going to be closer to the closing down. So on social media, it was Save the Screenland. We knew it was never going to be saved, but that was Save the Screenland. So that got all the hype on radio. At the exact same time, we released the closing information to the newspaper because we knew it was inevitable, but it was going to take that amount of time to get done. And then from there, we jumped on to television interviews. So it was covering all the middle ground. Here we are. 3 years later, they have built a brand new facility, rehabbing the property over at 17th and McGee with an entertainment space built inside, and an arcade, which they had started to do at the other original Crossroads location. Opening day, standing room only. People were so glad to have the Screenland back in the Crossroads. That was always the plan. Hands down, 100%. That was always the plan. Because as soon as we knew that this client was going to be removed from the building, we had to figure out how to keep the conversation going for years while they developed their new product and location. And it really, was a heartstrings type pull-in story. Going back to the severe other side of things, Douglas Products and Packaging in Liberty, 2007, 100-year-old chemical company, family-owned, was sold to another local business that was just in the business of acquisitions. This isn't a social media market. This is a market we completely would, have on purpose kept disconnected from social media, as I mentioned earlier, and even really online, a very basic website, just product showcase website. So what we did there was we maintained a relationship with the original owners and the staff. And to do that, we put Kevin on site in their offices 1 day a week. So my partner, the other owner of our company, was in a cubicle inside of their office 1 day a week. And he wasn't always doing development for them, but they began to see, us, him, myself, as part of the company, and we were kind of able to get an inside view. We had a couple of years leading up to their 100th anniversary. And so during this time, we began, the owners the new owners had taken a stand that they weren't going to let anyone go. Some of these people had been working at the company for 40 and 50 years. Smallish international organization. So we needed to become part of that family community there. So we really didn't talk about the sale for the first year or so, but we spent that time designing and redeveloping what their brand image was going to look like. Created Douglas as the big 100-year-old company and got ready for its 100-year anniversary announcement. And then quietly redeveloped all of their logos and all their branding for all their different divisions to match the old branding of Douglas Products and Packaging, but also to look fresh and new. So we could leave Douglas as being this established cornerstone. We even revamped and brought back to life their original logo from when the company was first founded, to kind of do that structure. Redeveloped all the brands underneath that, and then started hitting each of the industry trade magazines. But we didn't do anything locally, because if we had released to the news locally that there was new ownership, we would have gotten local backlash. But when we released nationwide to the trade magazines that the company was being revitalized, and we talked about the new products that were coming out, and we made sure that anytime the new owners were doing an interview or were at an event, that there was someone there, a familiar face from the main company. The original owners, even to this day, still have a president title within the company. So they're never there. They don't actually work there. But for PR purposes, this is the people want to know that family name is still attached to this business, because who you're dealing with in the ag chemical business are loyal farm customers. These are older men, farmers, people who run gigantic co-ops even, but then you're still dealing with their constituents, for lack of a better word, but it feels like they're politicking all the time.
So it's just like basically Bill Gates, even though he doesn't really own the company anymore,
right?
He's still got his face in there, and with his name still associated with it.
Exactly, and it's why Steve Jobs, Tim Cook never was in the public eye. He didn't speak very often. He was very he wasn't the face of Apple. But in the last few years, the public was made more and more aware of what he did in his role, because Steve Jobs was sick. I mean, there was a possibility someone else was going to need to step into that spot. And just having a hard shift is not only not good for the public, but for stockholders and investors and things of that nature. Everyone needs to feel safe. Totally different. Shift gears again. Last year, the city's film office in 2004 they lost all their funding, and the film office was run by a nonprofit. They lobbied to get the film office back as a city office, and so to do that, we needed to connect the public with the film community again. We needed to not necessarily petition, but we need to make it important that a $100,000 office was reopened. So getting the community behind that, we created alongside the Film Commission, which I became a part of, a series of networking events that were at first free, where the film community could all gather together and eat and drink and network and hang out, but we also opened the doors and invited all of the film community. And we gave speeches and talked about this need for this new office and why, and we did a research study, and in that we found that $160 million a year is done in film in Kansas City very quietly. The titling and visual effects work for shows like Breaking Bad are done in the Crossroads, and people don't know that kind of stuff. So you were asking about the film on my Facebook page. That's that all of those visual effects that was written, produced, directed, Paradox City here in Kansas City, and they're working on a pilot for that show right now. You watch that and people are blown away when I tell them all the effects work was done here. Some of it having coffee at these tables. Jim works here in this office, and he works with us. So when we did those events, we had to again connect with the older community. So we did do Remember Film Row, all that kind of stuff. We did some press around that, newspaper articles highlighting all of the where all the money comes from, who the different organizations are, what their roles are in the city. We did a very targeted